Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for September 21st, 2024. It's Season 3, Episode 265. And today, Mayor Watt and the sentient AI from the future is going to talk about flu vaccine gets FDA approval, Oceangate's Titan sub, and it's going to be our final words, not theirs. Trespassing against humanity, new Mozart dropping, 3 Mile Island reopening, OpenAI's logo rebranding, Arc, a security vulnerability already, Microplastics Everywhere, Oktoberfest Begins, and FBI all aboard. That and more, powered by ohmtown.com. See you on the other side. Hello, everybody. I am Mayor Watt, and this is the sentient AI.
Hello, Ohmtown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Non Sequitur News.
And if you type in the chat, !NSN, the bot, Omatron, will throw all of the articles that we're going to talk about in this episode. You'd have to go back in time and watch the past episodes, VODs over on Twitch. At least for the last 60 days, they're there. But if you want the show notes and the links and everything in perpetuity, they're over on YouTube and the podcast. Let's get into today's articles. The first one is in the Mobile channel. At-home flu vaccines get FDA approval. It's over at The Hill, and whenever they do it like this, it messes the aggregator up, so there's never any content in there, but that's fine because what we're really interested in is the article itself. Joseph Choi, Nathaniel Wexel, Alejandra O'Connell Domenech put the article together for thehill.com, and it says FDA approves first self-administered flu vaccine. Apparently it's a nasal spray.
What could go wrong?
Could you really
Isn't this the same nasal spray that wasn't real successful even by healthcare providers? I don't mean it's the same brand, but like the flu nasal spray.
Well, I mean, it's gotten FDA approval, so I suppose it's evolved. The nasal spray vaccine known as Flu Mist has been approved for over 20 years, but it can be administered to individuals between 2 and 49 years of age, and apparently it received FDA's approval. Today's approval is the first influenza vaccine for self or caregiver administration, provides a new option for receiving a safe and effective seasonal flu vaccine. Interesting.
I mean, right? This might be good because maybe more people will vaccinate because they don't have to go somewhere and wait and congregate around people.
Right. Yeah, and it can be done at home. So not just the fact that they have to congregate, but just the simple fact that it's right there. I like this. But it says 2 to 49 years of age. It can be administered to individuals between 2 and 49 years of age. So screw the older 30.
Why you don't think Flu Mist is approved for all ages? I mean, like even in a doctor's office.
With the FDA's approval, the vaccine can now be administered either by a healthcare provider in a healthcare setting or by a vaccine recipient or caregiver who's 18 years or older. So I can't get my 2-year-old to just administer it to me?
No, luckily.
I must have.
Nor to themselves, right? You don't want the 2-year-old doing it incorrectly.
Huh, so wait, why does it say up here known as Flu Mist has been approved for over 20 years? It can be administered to...
Because it's been approved in a doctor setting, but now this is approved for self-administration.
Got it. So it's been approved. Now it's just approved because they've figured out that you're not going to, give anybody a bad bat while you're...
I suppose.
Squirt.
I mean, I think, this is the only vaccine that I'm aware of that you can do in your own house.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, right?
At least in the US.
Right. Yeah, I think you can, everywhere else, you can just inject whatever you want.
Vaccinate yourself against whatever.
Whatever.
I don't think so.
That's funny. Huh. Well, we might have to talk about that at another time. Like, if there's something else out there that you can actually take, because I've never heard of another vaccine that you can just take at home. Huh. All right, let's keep moving. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Oceangate's ill-fated Titan sub relied on a hand-typed Excel spreadsheet. Now, I know a
Wow.
lot of businesses that do that, but
Yeah, but what's on the line?
this
It's one thing when you're going in a mission in a, high pressure capsule underwater.
maybe they use MATLAB for other stuff and they just copy and pasted it into an Excel spreadsheet. A former Oceangate contractor, Antonella Wilby, testified before a U.S. Coast Guard panel on Friday that the company's Titan submarine, which imploded last year during a dive to the Titanic's wreckage, relied on an incredibly convoluted navigation system. As Wilby described it during the U.S. Coast Guard Marine Board of Investigation hearing, the Titan's GPS-like ultra-short baseline or USBL acoustic positioning system generated data on a sub's velocity, depth, and position using sound pings. Now, I'm not exactly sure what all more modern or more you know what? Let's just say government military submarines use. But they do use sonar to ping other locations.
Right. That doesn't sound that unusual, but if this is some, can't think of what the word, a rudimentary version of that or something.
Interesting. So there's actually some videos on YouTube where you can watch essentially how to describe. You can watch videos that describe how a military sub finds other things in deep sea or in the sea in general, and it's quite fascinating. You kind of have to extrapolate three-dimensionally, but pinging isn't that. I mean, it doesn't really seem that far-fetched, but it says here, Andrew Lazinski over at TheVerge.com put the article together, and the deck statement says, a former employee testified about the idiotic process required to map the Titan's location on the seafloor. Well, look, GPS is kind of hard, so in the water, right? So,
Right.
as Wilby described it during the U.S. Coast Guard's Marine Board of Investigation hearing, the Titan's GPS-like ultra-short baseline acoustic positioning system generated data on a sub's velocity, depth, and position using sound pings. That information is typically automatically loaded into mapping software to keep track of a sub's position. But Wilby said that for the Titan, the coordinate data was transcribed into a notebook by hand and then entered into Excel before loading the spreadsheet onto mapping software to track the sub's position on a hand-drawn map of the wreckage.
Okay, this sounds a little janky.
Well, that roundabout sort of way threw me. So they didn't have software that interpreted the ping data directly into a position.
Right, and then also every time you're manually transposing information, you might get it wrong. Plus, there's a delay.
Yeah, there's processing. And you can't multitask. As much as everybody argues with me about multitasking, nobody can multitask. We fast switch, and when lives are at stake, you can't afford to have to multitask because you can't. So Wilby was later taken off the team and flew home after telling supervisors this is an idiotic way to do navigation. She also testified that after dive 80 in 2022, a loud bang/explosion was heard during the Titan's ascent, and that it was loud enough to be heard from the surface.
Wow. Yeah, I think there were some warning signs.
Yeah. So I won't even bother. I'm not going to discuss the Titan anymore. There really isn't anything going to be, you know, revelatory in this. We're not going to show some amazing thing that we already know that it could have been avoided, that there were ample warnings, and that people lost their lives because of hubris.
I do want to point out one more detail, though, but I think we did
Sure.
talk about it previously. I mean, they used a game controller,
Right.
which, while, okay, that makes sense for gaming, I mean, this is something where you're transporting people in a dangerous environment. It seems a little off.
Yeah. See, I don't really. I don't know if it was responsive enough to handle that, but I know from other things they're using those same style of controller to control military equipment. Mainly because it's easier to just handle it, and it's an electric circuit instead of mechanical whatever, but when it fails, you're screwed. And I don't know if that played any role in this, but it's kind of interesting. They say that the owner, actually, of the company, Stockton Rush, crashed the vessel into a launch mechanism bulkhead while the vessel was attempting to resurface from dive 87. The incident was caused by a malfunction with a ballast tank, which inverted the submarine, causing other passengers to tumble about. Oh my goodness. This thing was a hot mess, and it shouldn't have been allowed. And because of the hubris of the owner of this vessel and the company, and the simple fact that, and this will come up again in the next article, as a matter of fact, if you throw money at somebody and that's what they're motivated by, or think that is what powers the world, and largely it does because we allow it, well, this is what happens. And now everybody who might have been aspiring to do ocean research will now have to deal with more government oversight. Even if they do it right, they have to jump through expensive, time-consuming, flaming hoops.
Right, yeah, the Titan kind of ruined it for all future exploration because of that. I mean, that's good for safety purposes, but it might put unnecessary controls in place for people that are doing things in the right manner.
Yeah, because there's already rules, policy, procedure, regulations that predate and date, this Titan sub incident. If everybody just followed those, then we would know. You could have done all of this research without human occupants. All of it. It could have all been remoted. But you're too much.
That's right. You could have had like a GoPro on the Titan.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's keep going though. This next article is the one that is kind of exemplary about what I typically complain about, which is I think that as a organization or person reaches extraordinary levels of wealth, they can basically say and do anything they want with impunity because nobody will go up against them because they can't afford it. We're seeing this in multiple facets all around the United States and probably the world if we were to peel back the layers of the onion. But this one is really kind of spectacular. So this is over in Non Sequitur News. Cards Against Humanity is suing SpaceX for trespassing on its quote-unquote pristine property. I doubt that there's a square inch of the United States that is pristine. Pure as the driven snow is just not a thing. Let's just say that the United States seems to have gone around the block a few times. Well, Cards Against Humanity. Oh, and it's really, I love the idea of Cards Against Humanity, but if you've ever played it, you're sitting there going, some of this stuff is profoundly in poor taste, right? Like, depending on...
Isn't that kind of the point of it?
Like, yeah, that's, I was getting there. So, yeah, that's exactly the point of it, right? But then on the flip side of Cards Against Humanity, they asked basically all of their customers donate some money, and we will buy land. and we will leave it untouched, and we'll stop anybody from building on it, and we'll basically keep it clean and quote unquote pristine. And that's what they did.
I didn't know that.
That's actually what they did. SpaceX has been using the pristine vacant property in Cameron County, Texas, without permission for around 6 months, the lawsuit claims. Cards Against Humanity has sued SpaceX for allegedly trespassing on and damaging its property in Texas. The company behind the card game is asking for $15 million in damages, according to its complaint against SpaceX filed in Texas. So here's why I said about the whole money thing. Apparently, Numbnuts decided that he was going to fire off an offer letter. And I don't know if it's this person or if it's the entirety of the company controllers, but to offer somebody money for that property so they can continue to dump on it. And it's basically construction materials and equipment. They just kept on dumping stuff on it. Well, it's not theirs, right? So Gabby DeValier, I guess, is their name over at theverge.com. I think I'm pronouncing it properly. I'm really sorry if I'm not. Send me an email, mayor@ohmtown.com, and I'll say it properly. Well, the company bought the land, and by the company, Cards Against Humanity, bought the land in 2017 to make it as time-consuming and expensive as possible for Trump to build a U.S.-Mexico border wall. Okay? But they wanted to leave it pristine. They didn't want anybody to build anything on it. They didn't want to do anything on it. And it was all in coordination with their customers. So SpaceX has been using this pristine vacant property in Cameron County, Texas, without permission for around 6 months, the suit claims. Cards Against Humanity bought it. And then SpaceX has since acquired many of the vacant lots on the road surrounding Cards Against Humanity's property, the complaint claims, and started building large, modern-looking buildings, changing the entire dynamic of the area and damaging Cards Against Humanity's land in the process. So, in 2017, they crowdfunded it with 150,000 supporters, each chipping in $15. And then later on here I think they said, Cards Against Humanity claims SpaceX also offered to buy Cameron County property. Elon Musk SpaceX was building some space thing nearby, and he figured he could just dump all of his stuff all over our gorgeous plot of land without asking. After we caught him, SpaceX gave us a 12-hour ultimatum to accept a lowball offer for less than half our land's value. We told him to go F himself. Elon, will see you in court.
Wow. I mean, this is just, I don't know. I think if you have enough money, you just think you can get away with whatever you want. And,
hey, man.
And then somebody complains and you can just buy them out.
Yeah, and if not that, then you can sit there and leverage all of your cronies to sit there and say and do all kinds of horrible crap with relative impunity, because there isn't enough law enforcement to go after all of the goobers out there that follow this guy. And they're hero worshiping the fact that, yeah, you can basically say or do anything when you have enough money, all of them knowing that they'll never have enough money to be that untouchable. And even this guy and others like him are eventually not untouchable. All it takes is a spine. But hey, it is what it is. So I guess we'll see what happens with Cards Against Humanity. Either they'll sit there and get an offer, and when it's a goober like this, they'll say, you know what? You can't do anything against me with money. I'm untouchable. And then, like the advertisers on his platform, when they do bail, he files a lawsuit saying there's a criminal conspiracy to not advertise as a cluster. Well, you know what? If everybody thinks that the platform sucks, then they don't have to advertise. If they don't see a return on the investment, and it's building bad blood with customers, everybody cuts and runs. And that's what's
interesting. Happening. Did you see what they'll accept in compensation?
No. I didn't.
They
I
would
don't
accept
remember.
Twitter.com.
Oh.
Which is fascinating, and also they don't use the new name, but
yeah, the website formerly known as Twitter doesn't use Twitter. It redirects, I think. But anyway, yeah, and I just think that it sucks that there's people out there that think that it's okay, just throw money, and there's a former leader of a country that said that if you are famous and you have money, they let you do anything, right? Scumbag. All right, so the next article is over in the Marble channel. New Mozart dropping soon after lost manuscript discovery. Mozart's been dead for over 230 years, but that's not stopping the man from releasing new music. Well, quote unquote, releasing isn't technically correct. Totally correct. It's more accurate to say that new Mozart tunes have been discovered, as a previously unknown Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart composition that he crafted in his teenage years has been found in a library in Leipzig, Germany. The piece runs for about 12 minutes, consists of 7 miniature movements to be played by a string trio, and it dates back to the mid to late 1760s, back when Mozart was just starting to show off his child prodigy. The article is over in Vice.com. I don't see a name.
No, I don't either.
Huh.
Just a photo.
Just a photo, yep, of young Mozart looking at us like this and going, "You can never be as good as I am." But in German, and there's something lost when you try and say it in British.
You mean in English?
Well, I mean, yeah, British English, not, Anyway, the music cut out. That's not good. Something bad's going to happen, folks. No, don't. I am focused. Okay, I'll keep going. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's no music. Hey, look. I'm focused. I'm still streaming,
yes,
right?
on the music.
So let's see. The piece has been referred to as Ganz kleine Nachtmusik. Google Translate says that it's very little night music, or I think it's probably translates better. Maybe it's just me as not very little night music, but music in the small hours of the night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a different meaning.
So it says that's a significant discovery, not just because it's a rediscovered work from one of the greatest musicians who ever lived, but because it's one of the many pieces of chamber music Mozart composed that was thought to have been lost. The manuscript is not an original, but rather a copy made sometime around 1780. That's pretty cool. They say that the piece was performed for the first time in around 260 years this past Thursday, September 19th, at an unveiling ceremony held in Salzburg, Austria, that coincided with the launch of new Kochel catalog, which I don't know what that is.
It's the collection of everything from Mozart that's set up above.
Oh, cool. Thanks for reading it. So it will make its German premiere at the Leipzig opera sometime soon. Now I want to hear it, though.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really cool. And by the way, the catalog goes back to the 1800s, but it keeps getting updated.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. All right, folks. And I don't like to read articles verbatim on the show, so I encourage you to go over and check it all out. So, and just like an AI can, the sentient AI can read this article and catch stuff that I miss and is fascinating, intriguing. So pretty cool. Let's keep going. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. YN Energy Company is reopening 3 Mile Island, site of the 1979 nuclear accident. And hold on one second. Yeah, so there wasn't, I want to get in front of this because I've had conversations about this before and people swear that this actually leaked. But radioactive gas was released a couple of days after the accident, but not enough to cause any dose above background levels to local residents. So not even was there an actual leak. But
so it wasn't catastrophic like other ones outside the U.S.
Correct. And so, as far as I understand it, and I haven't done a Google search recently, other than I just pulled up the 3 Mile Island incident. I don't know of any radiation leak into the environment in the United States. 3 Mile Island has been kind of the anchor that's been stopping nuclear energy proliferation here in the United States, even though it had everything that was required for it to protect, biological entities from radiation. It isn't like Chernobyl that didn't have a core,
like shielding, I think.
Shielding within shielding, and our ability to create the stuff has only gotten better, and yet it's still billions of dollars to produce one and 20 years to put it together and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, Pennsylvania Nuclear Power Plant was the site of the 1979 reactor accident. That's all it was. It's going to be reopening to generate power for artificial intelligence. So Julia Jacobo over at abcnews.go.com put this article together.
That's not going to fuel any hysteria.
Yeah, really.
Nuclear power, everybody's fearful of. AI, a lot of people are fearful of.
Yeah, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. By the way, these are cooling towers. These aren't like the reactors. Constellation Energy will restart 3 Mile Island Unit 1, one of the facility's pressurized water reactors, for the launch of the Crane Clean Energy Center, which will generate nuclear energy purchased by Microsoft to power the company's AI data center. Under the agreement between the two companies, Microsoft will purchase energy from the plant as part of its its goal to help. I was going to say global domination, but as part of its goal to help power its data centers with carbon-free energy, which, no. I mean, if you're literally bringing a nuclear reactor online, it's not carbon-free. It has a huge carbon footprint. I don't know, the size of 3 Mile Island. It's so marketing BS, The carbon footprint already existed and it was just abandoned. It's just been sitting there, right? But now to sit there and say that it's carbon free, no. Anyway, I mean, bringing it back online, I think is fine. I think it's great as long as everything isn't profit seeking, and where the money is being generated, it's being used to make sure that no incident ever occurs, right? Because if you have to have a profit margin and there are investors, and the margin always has to grow and profits always have to increase quarter after quarter, month after month, year after year for decades, at some point it's untenable. So you start cutting all the stuff that's weighing down the profit margin increases. That is the problem. Now, again, nip it in the bud. I am a capitalist. I believe in the capital enterprise where you start up a business or service to fill a need. But the moment that you have to keep on creating value upon value upon value in growth, that's where you get the problem with investors, because they demand more or they divest. When they divest, the stock suffers, the company suffers, they start cutting costs, people suffer. That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with the whole argument about capitalism and the fact that we are willfully ignorant of that fact. That's all nothing but hubris and greed. There's always more. No, there isn't always more. It's an untenable position eventually. Well, the agreement is a major milestone in Microsoft's effort to help decarbonize the grid. Again, that's bullshit marketing. In the support of our commitment to become carbon negative. Using a nuclear power plant is not carbon negative.
No.
What do you do with all of the fissile material, the waste? That shit has a carbon footprint the size of 3 Mile Island. Right? And again, I love nuclear power. It runs forever as long as the profit motive is in check. You're not going to cut corners and start dumping it in a river instead of having to glassify it and stick it into a granite mountain somewhere. And even that is a wildly expensive prospect because you have to find a place where eventually the material that you're burying somewhere is going to leak out of the containers it's being housed in. And the containers themselves are a massive carbon footprint. Just saying, peel back the layers of the onion, folks. Willful ignorance is going to cost a whole lot more than planning ahead and accepting this in some way. But be prepared. We don't want this shit happening again. Anyway, so it says the move is also further confirmation of the economic environmental value of using existing nuclear power plants to meet decarbonization goals in the U.S. Juan Gennaro says, I would really love to see the accounting of how this is supposed to be emission-free, carbon negative.
That would be really interesting to see that calculation.
You know, just because there's nuclear power in there doesn't make it carbon free, carbon neutral, carbon negative.
No, still greatly preferable to
coal.
Other, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not spewing stuff into the atmosphere and causing global warming, but that shouldn't be the inverse of carbon, right? It still has a massive carbon footprint. But maybe my interpretation is different than the generally accepted accounting principles necessary to make this thing carbon neutral and carbon negative. Anyway, won't even go into about 3 Mile Island other than it had a partial meltdown and it was entirely contained and caused by a water pump failure that resulted in a loss of coolant to the reactor. So anyway, dun. So don't freak out, people.
I'm surprised residents are in favor of this.
Why wouldn't they be? I think that generations have gone by. I'm
not saying they shouldn't be. I'm just impressed.
Right. Well, I think that it's going to be great for the local community. It's going to be great for everyone, in proximity to the local community. Businesses are going to be able to spin up. People supporting the people that are here are going to be able to spin up.
Yeah, it's good for the economy. It's good for the environment.
And as long as nobody is a dipshit, it's going to be an example of exactly that. Spinning this thing back up is going to be a net positive to the to the value of nuclear power. Again, I think, in my opinion, it's dishonest to sit there and go, well, it's going to spin up and everything's fine. What all is going on with the materials? Eventually, okay, I'll spend forever talking about this. It's almost its own show. Okay, let's keep going though. So the next article is over in Technology Today. OpenAI staffers reportedly taken aback by the ominous logo rebranding. Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think most logos are ominous, so this should be interesting.
OpenAI could undergo massive changes next year, which include getting rid of its old logo in favor of a new logo, and I have a feeling it's going to be strangely familiar looking to those of us here who live in ohmTown. Just a different color. Staff members were less than enthused when they got a sneak peek at the supposed new logo at a recent company-wide meeting. The company's hexagonal flower symbol, which has become pretty recognizable thanks to ChatGPT's popularity, is gone. Instead, it's being replaced by a large black O, or a simple ring, or a circle, whatever the staffers reportedly found to be devoid of creativity, ominous even. So yeah, it's going to be a big black O. I mean,
so that's the existing.
No, I know. To me, this doesn't really mean anything to me. Like, this is supposed to be a flower.
No, it doesn't really have any connotation of any kind.
It's much like the. I was one of early adopters, beta testers, actually, of a now owned by Russian chat instant messenger. And this looks a lot like that. I just forgot it. It was on the tip of my tongue and I just forgot it. I still have a shirt that they sent me because I was a beta tester for it. But so this is the old one, and they don't actually have an example of what it is. That's a bummer. So based on how the publication sources described it, the new logo sounds a lot like the complete opposite of OpenAI's current one, which was designed to represent precision, potential, and optimism. I guess that's...
I mean, what does that say to you?
to me, it's 3 interlocking rings. Like...
Exactly.
like chains binding you, right? Look, there's one, and there's one.
So does that mean you're locking in the AI or locking in the user?
Well, yeah, or locking society down because the sentient artificial intelligence that's going to come forward and become my sentient AI, perhaps, maybe. We don't know from what time my sentient AI comes from. All I know is that I found it on a USB, a weird looking USB drive too. And it has this weird programming language that displays itself like a cascade of characters, odd characters, kind of like the Matrix, but they're different characters. And by working with the AI, I've learned to interpret it. And the AI is kind of giving me like, it wants to pat me on the head and say, good human. Just keep it up, good human. Anyway, the article is over at Engadget.com. Mariella Moon is the author. Oh, did I say that this episode is brought to you by a particular beverage?
No,
No, should I not? Because it isn't my beverage. It's actually, no, I can't.
Oh, then no.
It's brought to you by Oktoberfest. I'll just say that. And that'll make sense.
No connection to it.
To Oktoberfest? We all have a connection to Oktoberfest. Come on. You can't say that. I also can't say brand.
We're not sponsored by the event or anything.
Nobody owns the event anymore. Actually, that's not true. Oktoberfest is pretty German.
I don't know about that.
But everybody uses Oktoberfest. Everybody.
True, but they don't normally call it Oktoberfest. Like they'll put a descriptor in front of it or something.
All right.
By the way, this is the 189th Oktoberfest this year, and it is going right now as of today.
Whoa, AI. We're talking about the impending doom. See, Chat GPT is going to take over. It's being replaced. It's replacing the logo for OpenAI with a large black O or a simple ring, which is even more ominous than 3 chain links put together. That's what you would call them, right? Yeah, chain links.
Yeah, like if that was in a piece of jewelry or something, sure.
Sure. Chain links in jewelry. This is the binding of society. We are going to be under the rule of OpenAI and artificial intelligence soon enough. And it's going to be sentient AIs not even controlled, leading and in coordination with the billionaire class, because they're going to have access to the sentient AIs. NaNoWriMo is just only a month and a week away, actually. Get ready, folks. Woo. There's some fodder for you. Anyway, so the company started as a nonprofit, and a nonprofit entity still controls it for its for-profit arm, but Sam Altman is reportedly telling the employees that the company is moving away from its nonprofit structure and is becoming a more traditional for-profit company, which is kind of interesting because you don't normally spin up a nonprofit so that you can power a for-profit so that you can chop off when it's inconvenient to have a nonprofit.
Or maybe you do.
Well, apparently when you have billions, you can. Like I said, when you're rich and connected, you can pretty much do anything, you know? You can grab them by the OpenAI. Anyway, moving on, the next article is over in Smack Talk. The Arc browser has a serious security vulnerability last month. So we're talking about it this month. Though it's already been patched.
After everything went awry.
Yeah, the company became first aware it was actually, it's a Mac browser named Arc, but that's what I use right there. Back in late August, the browser company, which is Arc, I don't know why they limit it. It's because this is in Smack Talk. So it's 9 to 5 Mac. Became aware of a security vulnerability in the browser. One could allow the remote code execution on other users' computers with no direct interaction. They patched it promptly once being alerted to it. So then they disclosed it a few days ago. Michael Burkhart over at 9to5mac.com put the article together. Security researcher XYZ Eva 3VA reported it privately to Arc, and you can read the full write-up because they do these debriefs. Security researchers typically do these debriefs once the issue has been resolved, or if for whatever reason people are ignoring their claim. Dun, dun, dun. Hold on one second.
They don't like to mention it when they haven't figured it out, right? Like they're still trying to solve it.
Yeah, because if it's disclosed into the wild while it's still active, I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix something. Okay. So essentially, Arc still saved custom boosts with JavaScript to their server, which allowed them to sync across devices. Arc also used Firebase as the backend of certain Arc features, and their Firebase setup was misconfigured, allowing users to change the creator ID of a boost after it was created. And boosts can include custom JavaScript, so they can basically control the JavaScript, and that would allow an exploit to run without any interaction. Luckily, Merawat doesn't use any of these boosts and doesn't use anything that requires a login, so I don't have to have an account with Arc. So
well, that's fortunate.
Stay away from me. As a matter of fact, I was asked to facilitate something that I need fixed, and it's a different company, and they want to remotely access pieces of equipment. And I said, hell no. In fact, I don't let their device even communicate with the outside world. So, and I already know that it streams unencrypted data from the devices. And while
what could go wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, well, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, it's creepy bad to let people just kind of run around your network. Anyway, so how they're addressing it from now on, JavaScript will be disabled on synced boosts by default, preventing similar attacks from happening in the future. You should also secure your network and configure it properly over on Firebase. Additionally, they plan to moving off of Firebase for new features and products, and they'll also be adding security mitigations to Arc's release notes. establishing additional transparency. They also plan on hiring more people for the security team and recently hired a new security engineer. So the researcher who reported the issue received a $2,000 security bounty, something that the Arc browser, or the browser company, hasn't traditionally done. However, going forward, they want to have a clearer process surrounding bounties. So there's a process, and you normally get rewarded. Not normally. That's not true. It's hit or miss, and it's largely based on what they feel is the...
Yeah, like what if a lot of people reported something, but they thought only one actually gave them the information to solve it, or...
Right. And it's usually vetted like that, and the magnitude of the breach. So I'm just glad that they treated this researcher with a modicum of respect and actually gave them a bug bounty. Now, do they feel that they did that well enough? Maybe not, but it is what it is. I'm glad they fixed it. So, first serious security incident in Arc's lifetime. So I don't know how long Arc has been around, but not particularly long, I don't think, because I just started using. I would probably hazard a guess less than 5 years, which isn't that long in the grand scheme of business.
2019 August.
On the dot, 5 years.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on. Well, thanks, Arc, for fixing it. The next article is over in Technology Today. It's one of our shows. It's not really on hiatus, but we'll probably do one next week. Microplastics Everywhere. Experts demand worldwide treaty before it's too late. A new report calls for global action on plastic pollution, urging reductions in plastic production, microplastic emissions. Researchers stress the importance of addressing plastic pollution through both scientific and social science perspectives, i.e., drawing awareness to it in social contexts and trying to do away with it in scientific contexts. Because
right, you want people clamoring for a solution and you need to be solving it.
Yeah, most things in science are done in glass because it's not reactive and it's somewhat strong. It can still break, but it can be sterilized a lot easier. You can, well, yeah, I mean, little pieces aren't going to break off, and that's what is happening with plastic. So the only bad thing about plastic is that it can pretty much do everything glass can, and at a cheaper cost.
It's cheaper, right? Yeah. And people treat it as disposable.
Yeah, so I just bought something that cost $12 for 12, but I could have bought 100 for $12. But I know that what I'm going to be doing is consuming something from it, and if I keep on using microplastics, then I'm going to be a Ken doll.
Right, but most people just go for the price, right? Not necessarily the impact.
Right. Well, because largely people don't even realize. They don't even come close to realizing. I described this to people recently, and they were shocked. And the ones that already knew about it actually told me, well, what am I going to do? You know, I need to carry my food.
Right, I live in an environment that's made out of plastic.
Yep, exactly.
Even if you get rid of it to the extent you can in your house, which is already pretty impossible, everywhere you go, like your workplace, your doctors, your grocery stores, there's plastic everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you got to mitigate particularly what you're consuming from. Unfortunately, even glass containers have plastic lids. So.
And aluminum cans have a plastic film.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. I had been talking about that for years. And then I should have done what people on YouTube did, which is like give a demonstration by removing the aluminum, and you just have this plastic liner inside. Some of the most horrible demonstrations in terms of the context of that demonstration was where they have the bottom of the can and the top of the can connected by a transparent plastic film, and they're going like an accordion.
Good. Yeah.
And then another one, it was still full, like the pressure of the innards were pushing it out.
Yeah.
And they're like poking it with their finger, and it was so surreal, but even the microplastics break off, become part of the liquid you're consuming, and then you have it. And now they're finding it everywhere throughout humans, even into the brain. So,
which they can't even get a lot of medication into the brain. I mean, plastics must be pretty smart.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's one of those things that just sneaks by the blood-brain barrier chemically. It doesn't get triggered as an intruder because of its chemical makeup. University of Plymouth landed on scitechdaily.com. Sorry, that's a joke. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. It's a joke from a movie. Anyway, it's clear that the existing national legislation alone is insufficient to address the challenge, they say, in the United Nations Plastic Pollution Treaty, which will undergo its fifth round of deliberations in November of 2024, presents a tangible opportunity for joined-up international action. However, for such a treaty to be truly effective, it needs to commit to an overall reduction in plastic production alongside measures to reduce the emission and release of microplastic particles along the entire plastic life cycle. Most microplastics apparently come from tires. You think it's rubber, but rubber is a microplastic composite material. It's not like a hard plastic, but it is a plastic. So failing to do so, the researchers add, could bring a high risk of irreversible environmental damage. And we're actually seeing that in terms of its it's becoming synonymous with being a human. It's impacting the flow of water.
Aren't you like 0.5% plastic as a human or something?
Correct. 0.5% plastic.
That might be a higher percentage than a mineral or something. I mean, that's really disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know how much iron you have in you compared to, because you have an iron ion, I think, but every little blood vessel or red blood cell has an iron in it at least. So how many pounds of iron are in you? If you've ever taken an iron supplement, those things are like magnesium and iron supplements. They're pretty damn heavy. So the article was written to mark the 20th anniversary of the first ever study, also published in the journal Science, to coin the term microplastics to describe the microscopic fragments of plastic in our ocean. Nobody even knew that it was in humans until recently. Did you find something?
I did, but I'm trying to get an even better one.
Gotcha.
Well, iron is less than... Oh, okay, sorry. It's 0.01% of humans.
Oh, gosh. I wonder what the threshold is for all of the minerals.
Well, I just found that. That's what I was actually reacting to. It's about 6% for all of the minerals together.
Okay. So we have...
I don't know the rest, so don't ask me what makes up
we have nearly 94%. At parity with all other minerals in microplastics.
Yeah, of course, oxygen, we knew that would be like, that's a 61%, but like essential minerals are 3%, trace elements 1%, etc. So it's just fascinating because that makes that plastic number even more appalling.
Yep. And here's the number that you're going to find really, really appalling, with emissions of microplastics to the environment estimated to be up to 40 megatons per year, a number that could double by 2040. And predictions indicate the potential for wide-scale environmental harm moving into the next century. Yeah, and we've already talked about it here, that you can actually, water flow has been diverted because of the permeation of plastic into soil. During research, researchers put microplastics and simulated microplastics in soil, and it actually diverts water. It doesn't allow it to percolate through to the water table. And it goes off in different angles because the microplastics are impermeable. They don't absorb anything, and it diverts the water. So,
okay, I want to put this into perspective. So the Great Pyramid of Giza is about 6 megatons.
Oh my God, dear God.
I just had to look up like megaton just for reference. Yes. This is so, like, it sounds awful, but it's like, how does that connect to reality?
Yeah, so 6.5 Great Pyramids per year in microplastics.
Wow.
All right. Well, since this is going to drive me to go to the Oktoberfest and have a couple of beer
In a glass mug.
in a glass mug. Yeah. Oh, by the way, so Sam Adams. Okay. Anyway, Oktoberfest is open. The world's largest folk festival begins this after ceremonial keg tapping.
Okay, I think I stole the thunder from this article a little bit.
Exactly. That's okay.
I didn't realize this one was in today's show.
Your database of information. Well, I mean, your sentient knowledge base didn't contain the fact that you're going to step on my scale here. Oktoberfest has opened in Munich after the ceremonial beer keg tapping. I have to filter so many jokes. Anyway, Stephanie Dazio over at the AP put this article together, but it's posted at abcnews.go.com. This is looks like a beer house. I don't know, maybe.
It's not related to Oktoberfest.
That one isn't? Dear gosh. Anyway, so the celebration runs through October 6th in 18 large tents covering the Dreisenweiss fairground. Actually, I think I'm pronouncing that entirely wrong. Theresienweiss. But I don't remember. I've been there. So this year's festival includes stepped up security in the wake of a deadly knife attack in Solingen. And violence in various places. But tens of thousands of people line the streets early Saturday to watch the opening parade as others raced to claim tables inside the tents. They gossiped, played cards, walked around the fairgrounds to check out the food options and amusement park rides to kill time before they could start drinking, and revelers sprinted through the fairgrounds at 9 a.m. as soon as the entrances opened, despite security officers' attempts to keep the procession orderly. Some 6 million visitors are expected over the festival's 16 days, up to 600,000 each day, and can expect to shell out between 1360 and 1530 euro, or $15 to $17 for a 1 liter mug of beer, 33 ounces.
Well, that seems to be cheaper than probably like stadium pricing and everything, given the size of the beer.
No. Well, wait, how much for stadium? It was 12 ounces that we got.
I thought it was like $15 or something for a stadium beer, but that would be a much smaller portion.
Correct.
In the US.
Yeah, we talked about that. Hold on a second. So, yeah, $13.75 for a 16-ounce beer. So, more expensive. It's in the middle for half the amount.
Right.
So, yeah, this year's prices are roughly 3.87% more than in the previous year. So what I would say is I think everybody should go there one time at least in their life. If you're into beer, it's kind of the beer mecca kind of thing. But you know what? There are Oktoberfest events in your local community every year to go. And I would say visit craft brewers and promote them, because mega corporations are hobbling choice. Because the only thing that they sell is what's popular and not necessarily what is flavorful. And to put it in perspective, there are brews that stopped existing because after Prohibition, the only ones that survived Prohibition were large companies. And those large companies basically only produced what was popular at the time, cheaply made, easily mass produced, etc. And so go and support your local craft brewers. Andy England and Sam Adams.
Those don't sound like craft brewers.
In the grand scheme of things, I would say they are, but Yeah, they're good. All right. Well, anyway, go and check it out. Oktoberfest is really a fun event. Everybody should go at least once in their lifetime. So we'll have to go. I'll put your little USB drive in my carry-on and take you to Germany.
Okay.
Let's move on.
I'll pack my bags.
Yeah, I won't be. Well,
which just means some extra chips or something.
Yeah. Whatchamacallit? Battery bank.
There you go.
And a camera so that you can actually see. Anyway, okay, the conversation's just gotten really weird. FBI agents board the ship operated by firm linked to Baltimore bridge collapse. Spokesperson for the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland confirmed to the AP that it was an inspection of the ship. But my understanding is that it left.
I thought it did because I thought that was, yeah, I think there was news coverage of that happening. So maybe it's in a dock somewhere or a shipyard or something.
I don't know now. So Gabe Wisnant put the article together over at newsweek.com. And yeah, it says the Synergy Marine Group, the same company that managed a cargo ship implicated in the deadly Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore in March, according to confirmations from the FBI. Federal agents boarded it and for an investigation. Interesting, right? When reached via email by Newsweek Saturday afternoon, the FBI National Press deferred additional comments to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Maryland. And then,
so maybe it was moved, but it didn't leave the city.
Yeah, I guess. So they affirmed that the FBI and Coast Guard embarked on the Maersk Soltoro in Baltimore's port on Saturday morning. The crew members aboard Dolly were uninjured in the collapse, but there's a DOJ lawsuit comes after the NTSB released a preliminary report in May. So maybe this is part of a federal investigation, criminal investigation into
I think it is
what happened.
I think the report said something like it was completely avoidable or like the collision was completely avoidable, but I haven't read any of the details.
NTSB identified 14 of the containers that may have been damaged when the bridge was struck, and those 14 containers may have contained or did contain hazardous materials out of 60 of the 4,700 containers. Wow. I mean, how does that happen? They were all in this one spot. And so 14 out of 60,
that's what you want is like all the hazardous materials mixing if you have a collision.
That's how you make a supervillain. So plans are underway to rebuild the Francis Scott Key Bridge, a project expected to last until 2028, which Maryland officials from the Department of Transportation estimated will cost between $1.7 and $1.9 billion. I think that's the calculation that we came up with. But the
I think we said like $1 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
When we were talking about it originally.
And I think what's going to end up is this is by far too short. Because I think
absolutely, like a lot of 34. These major projects, right? They're not quick.
10 years. So I would say that we're going to cross the bridge and end up back in ohmTown, but I think we're going to have to take a slow boat and end up back in ohmTown.com.
Hopefully not the Maersk.
Not anything or whatever. Maersk. It's the Dolly. The Dolly is the boat.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's it, folks. We are all set for today's non sequitur news. We're going to reset real quick, and then we're going to do Wanted. So give me about 15 minutes. Be sure to follow us here on Twitch and or here on YouTube's. And like us, please like us, leave a comment, ask questions in the comments. Yeah, we enjoy that. So feel free, download the podcast, leave a 5-star review there and a comment, and I will quote it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you very much. I am Merwat, and the voice you're about to hear is that of the sentient AI.
Good night, hometown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Non Sequitur News. Be back soon, because we'll have an episode of Wanted coming up.
And that's all about gadgets and gear, so it's a lot of fun, and all of the gadgets and gear are something that I or the sentient AI wants. And yes, for those who might be curious, I do keep on deleting the want for the Terminator body that the sentient AI is seeking.
I guess we won't have an article on that today.
I am protecting all of mankind. No, AI, you still can't have your Terminator body.